We'll call this meeting to the Advisory Task Force on Solid Waste to order. Chairman Reeves, you're recognized.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Todd. Okay, we're going to continue these presentations. We've got a couple of more we're going to try to knock out this afternoon. I'd like for Mr. Tom Leonard to come forward if he would. General Manager from Severe Solid Waste. Mr. Leonard, if you would, turn on your microphone, introduce yourself, and tell us about all the good work you're doing in East Tennessee.
All right, I'll try to do that. Thank you for having me. I'm going to try to go through a few of these slides just to show you what we're doing in Sevier County. So we actually are doing co-composting with municipal solid waste and biosolids. We service Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, and Sevier County. This is a picture of our plant. We got about almost 200,000 square feet under roof. Again, we also take a national park, even North Carolina side and Blount County side. Obviously, the organic fraction MSW, food, wood, yard waste, paper, cardboard, all that material is going to break down, make compost. We also, something that's unique is we take a lot of material from zero waste to landfill companies. So we're getting material from as far away as Florida, Texas, all over Tennessee, South Carolina. So we get a lot of organics that are looking to be processed into compost as well. That was gummy lifesavers. That's an overview of the plant. We're right now processing 500 tons per day. I believe that's the biggest mixed MSW composting facility in North America.
Is that right?
All these trucks are emptying on our tipping floor, so it's just kind of like a transfer station where you dump and move that material into a tractor trailer, but we're moving it into rotary in-vessel units that we can produce compost with. So we've got a machines loader pushing to a material handler that we're dumping into pits in the floor. And that's a compactor that's pushing into these rotary units. So we have 5 of these units that we're operating currently. We have a 6th unit that's a little bit older and needs some maintenance. The waste and the biosolids will stay in there for 3 consecutive days, and then we'll unload that material, and we're continuously loading material into these units. These drums turn 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's our newest digester number 6. It was a $6 million investment to continue this composting. There it is installed. We've added some buildings onto the end, so it's looking a little better now, but that was during the installation process. This is the discharge where the material comes out. So after it's been in there, all that organics is mixing together. It's creating its own heat, just like composting out in nature. So the microorganisms are working to break down all that organic waste, your paper, food, anything in there. The drums will break open the bags, all that material is mixing together, and then you can kind of see the material coming out of the doors there onto the conveyor belt. So that's all unloading onto a 48-inch conveyor belt. The biggest problem we have is people don't know that we want just regular household trash. We don't really need carpet and all these bungee cords from the bungee jumping in Pigeon Forge, because those cause hairballs, and they're quite difficult to deal with because they don't want to come out that door. There's a whole bunch of hairballs. So we have a machine to pull those off with and try to keep track of that. This is our primary trommel screen. It screens down to about a 1-inch minus. So what it's doing is it's separating the inorganics, the plastic bags, the plastic bottles, the tin, aluminum, and from the actual compost. So that's the compost you see falling down into the bunker. And what's going to fall there is going to be your compost, your knives, forks, spoons, glass, bottle caps, anything that'll pass through that 1 inch minus um, screen. So there you can see the residuals. You see the plastics and the aluminum, the tin, and then the compost is the darker material you see in there that I'm holding. The residuals are going into these containers, and then these containers are hauled to our post-processing plant where we actually pull out some of the recyclables like aluminum and tin. And we're looking to do number one plastics. That's just another view. And you can kind of see the finish or the start of the composting there in the background. So that material is going to be put into piles, and it's going to be turned with a stacking conveyor for about 28 days. So the total process is about 30 days. And then once we get to around 30 days, we're going to start screening down to like a 1/4 inch minus. So this is our final stacking conveyor. It works just like a compost turner. It takes material and piles it from one pile to the next. And we keep doing that continuously. We actually operate the airfloor 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. This is our final screen. It's a flip deck screen. Actually uses plastic mats with holes in them to relieve that material. And that way we're taking out that bigger, like bottle caps, knives, forks, spoons, that bigger stuff from the 1 inch to get down to that 1/4 inch minus material that we're looking for, so that we can send that out to farms and construction projects. So this is a pile of finished compost, and we have a lot. We make about 70,000 tons a year of compost out of this MSW. We're composting about 60% of everything goes to the plant, ends up being composted. And then we have some other recycling efforts I'll show you here at the end. This is what the finished product looks like. It's really good for growing grass and plants. We have a number of soil blenders that use it, and landscapers that use it for, potting, and then it's used on construction sites and farms all over East Tennessee. Yeah, I think there you go, soil blenders and stuff. This is some of projects we've done in-house, like final caps on landfills. So we've actually done several of these, and we put down compost and mix it with soil, and we don't even have to add fertilize. So we're able to get that kind of grass growing out of that product. We also blow compost. We have a truck that we blow with. We actually have done sites in town or in the mountains where we're blowing on side slopes to try to get grass to grow, places that are harder to get to. This was a project we did back, not this time, but the last time the government shut down. We got all the help from the national park. A lot of their volunteer workers or AmeriCorps workers, and they actually put this bank in, and then we were able to sow some trees in these socks, and now you don't even know it's there. I mean, you can't even tell. It's really cool, but it's a lot of hard work. We do air handling and odor control, so we're pulling material out of the facility. We're pulling the air out and running it through our biofiltration system, which is a mixture of mulch and wood chips and things to try to clean the odor up from the compost plant. Our recycling building, which we've been operating for the last year or so, few years, to pull out material that is like mostly aluminum and metal right now, but we're looking to try to get number one plastics out also. So this is all the cans that are thrown away in Sevier County and during the tourist areas. You know, I kept telling everybody, I was like, I think Wednesday's going to be our biggest day because the garbage stays in there. It's digesters 3 days, and then that residuals comes over to the plant. And sure enough, Wednesday, we get a lot of aluminum on Wednesday because that's the weekend beer drinking. See? And boy, when you have like a what they call that slammed enough or whatever it was up there was a lot of beer cans come out of that. So, but anyway, we're sorting those materials to recycle the aluminum and the metal, and we're trying to do the plastic. We want to get to the point where plastic film and some of those plastics that don't have a market can be used for alternative fuel. We haven't got there yet, but we're definitely working on that project. So that if you threw a bag, within reason, if you threw a bag of garbage away in Sevier County, all of it would either be composted or recycled. So that's the end goal. And there's a lot more to that. There's always a place for landfills. I've never been to any of these facilities that you don't have some waste, something that doesn't fit into the box and has to be landfilled at some point. But I think it's just what we're trying to do. This is kind of the total of what we're trying to do there. So that's what it looks like when it comes over from the plant. It's pretty dirty and nasty. And so that's our pick line. We pick out just stuff that's going to cause a problem within the system. It's mostly just like textiles and stuff. We don't do a lot of picking. We're really only picking those smaller hairballs, textiles, and things that might cause a problem in the equipment. And you can see there, wood, pieces of wood, stuff like that, just blocks of stuff. But here's what the aluminum looks like. And this must have been a Wednesday because that's a lot. But really, we'll run this much in a day. It's not a big deal. There's a lot of aluminum that comes to our facility. We were having a problem early on with cleaning it. I saw some earlier presentations. The devil's in the details. Everybody wants materials, but they want them in a certain way. And we found out that the hard way. They want clean aluminum and they want it to be aluminum cans. They're not interested in other types of aluminum as much and definitely not interested in dirt. So we installed a system, a DPAC system that uses water and high torque, like kind of like a centrifuge. It's really high powered auger to clean that compost out of the aluminum so that we can sell it. And there you can see some of the clean aluminum that we moved to market. We also recycle cardboard, about 5,000 tons a year that we're gonna recycle because we have so many shops and stuff there that we can do that. It would make compost in the plant, but we want to save that for better items, gummy worms and lifesavers and stuff. We also have a demolition landfill that we operate. So that's the kind of stuff that's not going to do well in the compost plant. Wood will compost, but it won't compost in that form. So that's a picture of one of our older landfills that's actually closed and capped now. And you can see the recycling facility over on the right. And then to the left of my office is cardboard baling and composting. And again, this is our new Johnny was asking me about our new demolition landfill. This is the landfill. We just got in this just about a year and 6 months ago. And that hole, which was bigger than that when they finally finished, is full. So it's quite busy around there with all the hotel building and all the just like somebody said earlier, everybody wants to move to Tennessee. We received a few awards over the years, Governor's Pursuit of Excellent Awards and some other awards. We're proud of the system and what we're trying to do. It's a lot of hard work, but that's what we're trying to we've been able to extend the life of our landfill. It should have closed in 2007 and it's still open today, our class 1. So that was kind of the goal. I think that's all I've got for the presentation. If anybody has any questions.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. Congratulations on all you're doing over there. That's just fascinating. How you're doing that. Couple of things that jumped out to me is, are you selling your aluminum? And
Yes, we are selling our.
and you're and how do you identify people to sell it to? Are they coming to you? How does that working out?
We are working with a company that actually can further separate it. So because an eddy current will separate ferrous from non-ferrous. So it doesn't know the difference between stainless and aluminum. So it's all there. So we're actually working with a company that's not too far away, actually, in Kingston, that can separate it further. Of course, we're not going to get what somebody's going to get from a convenience center, that nice beer can sales, but we have a large quantity. So.
And all that money comes back into your landfill operation, right?
Yeah, we're just like Smith County. We're an enterprise fund. We don't get any funding from the government other than they pay tipping fees just like everybody else.
So you're totally private. You mentioned that. So what's the capacity? You showed your landfill right there. Are you close to capacity on that one landfill you just showed?
No, we're not close. We're about half full on that landfill. We are trying to permit another class 3 landfill for construction and demolition. And our capacity at the plant is we can do about 600 tons a day. Currently, we're processing about 500 tons a day at the plant, and then another 400 over at the C&D landfill.
So why are there not 10 of these facilities around Tennessee? Why is nobody else doing this?
Well, it was interesting. Our cost is around $37.50 a ton. That's what our cost is as a government-run organization. And Johnny and the mayor were saying their cost was around $20 to put it in a landfill.
Just cheaper.
It's just cheaper to landfill it. And when you look around the state and the nation, most of the garbage is handled by private companies who own landfills. So, I mean, I think that's why. Now, in our case, we would probably have to transfer anyway. So we try to stay in that transfer station price, which is somewhere in that $40 to $50 range. So that's where we're trying to compete with transfer, because that would be our option. There's no real viable, affordable property in Sevier County to put another that kind of landfill.
You got any questions?
With the material you're producing, the compost material, are you able to sell that? And if so, what's the economic offset to some of those costs?
We are, but it's a negligible offset. I mean, we move all the material, but we end up paying the haul bill. So it ends up, whatever we get just kind of pays for us to haul it to a farmer or to one of these places. We just produce more than there is demand for, or, in order to get a real price for it. But we do, we're charging $44.50 a ton for what comes in. So we make enough money on the front end to handle the organizational costs.
And you said all Sevier County. Are you only taking care of Sevier County? Nobody else around you?
We do not take other counties, but we do take a lot of source segregated waste.
Other group that comes in.
I don't know for certain, but I believe I passed a truck in Lebanon that's headed to my plant this morning. I mean, we take a lot of grocery store waste from a large company. Well, a lot of grocery store waste from a lot of stores. And like I said, I looked over and I was like, I'm pretty sure I saw him at the plant yesterday. So we get, you can't imagine. I get so many requests, birthday cakes, chicken feet. I mean, you just can't even imagine how many requests I get for, it's something every day, all the time, that people wanting to, their goals are a zero waste to landfill, and they want to make sure that gets composted rather than landfill.
Questions for Mr. Leonard, Ms. Parrott?
I don't have questions. I just want to say first, Mr. Leonard has done a fine job of presenting himself very humbly. He and his operation are absolutely amazing. This PowerPoint does not do it justice. I've toured it twice, once with my county mayor and then once taking my county commission there in 2018 in hopes of duplicating something like that for our solution. And this doesn't do it justice. To sit there and see a room full of garbage bags come out to a handful of fluff that is pH balanced enough to go back into soil is absolutely amazing.
Mm.
This has got to be part of our formula. It already is part of our formula in Tennessee, but it's a gem that we absolutely need to polish up and look at more. Tom, thank you for all your work. I know you've put years into that, and it shows the effort is well documented.
We may need a task force field trip.
Hey, we do a
Yeah.
lot of tours all the time.
Yes, Mr. Mallon.
First, can I have your autograph before you leave? That, I mean, humbly presented is exact. That was just remarkable. The hydro seeding, that's what I'm calling it when you showed that you were distributing it on that sort of road shoulder. Are you mixing seed with that, or is that just the compost product to fertilize?
No, we have mixed seed. We can mix seed. Now, sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we'll put down that layer for like temporary erosion control, and then we'll come back and seed it later. But we've actually blown seed in with the mix.
I think that's just remarkable. So that I asked you that to ask you this. There is a history in our state and other places. I think Copper Hill might get the worst of it right now from what I read of sewage sludge. And there's this intersection of waste materials. We're talking about household waste, consumer waste, but then there's the sludge element that has to be landfilled. And I probably should have asked earlier, asked the mayor about that. Do y'all handle that, Mayor?
We used to, but they made us stop taking it.
Okay, so, beneficial reuse is a term that it means different things to different people. If you live next to where it's being beneficially reused, it might not be that beneficial. Do you ever get asked to handle anything from the wastewater side?
We handle all the water sludge from the three cities, Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, and Sevierville. And then that's what's called classified as Class B sludge. And, from composting that, we'll turn that into a Class A compost. So the difference in that Class B has certain loading requirements on land when they're doing land application, and Class A is unlimited.
So you can convert the more offensive odor material into your best product.
Yes, we can.
That's no small accomplishment. So
Yeah.
that wasn't up there on
It's tricky because too much moisture in that system can cause a lot of problems throughout the system. So we have to really watch how much we used to take Newport's biosolids for years. So we were taking Newport's in addition to that, but it just got to be too much, and it got our process too wet, and we just had to.
So in addition to all those garbage bags, you're taking all the sludge for Sevier County.
You're correct.
Congratulations.
Do you have the odor problems?
When you mix garbage and sludge together, it creates an interesting odor.
Okay.
I wouldn't say we spend a lot of money and a lot of time and effort treating that odor. So yeah, it's interesting.
Mr. Thomas.
I was curious about the organics that you get from out of state. What's the economics of them transporting that all the way to you? The stuff you said you got from Florida, and I mean, isn't there a transportation cost to get it to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the bigger companies that they were talking about with the EPR, and they have, in-house company mandates. And so what they do is they hire third-party brokers to find places like us. And right now, there's just not a lot out there. So, and within the southeast anyway. So we end up being a location for a lot of materials. We probably deal with like 4 different brokers. And I mean, anything and everything you can imagine, from toothpaste to birthday cakes to ice cream. I mean, and it's costly. I think the same thing.
Yeah.
But what's more costly is we used to take 15 loads a week of chewing gum. And I'm like, how do you make any money on chewing gum if you're throwing away 15 tractor trailer loads a week? That's what amazes me. So,
Okay, thank you.
What else we got? Anybody else on the committee? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Kern.
So how many people do you employ at this facility?
well, that's a good question. I get asked that by my board every month. And I said, well, it varies because it's a dirty, nasty job over there. So, but we have about 30 people on staff, depending on what day of the week it is.
And what would be your max capacity for this facility as far as waste coming in?
For that
Tonnage-wise,
facility, for
yeah.
just the composting, 600 tons per day.
Thank you.
And you're at 500, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you just bought a $6 million additional.
Just added it. Well, it was in January of 2024.
Okay. What else we got for this gentleman here? Commissioner? Yes.
So what's your diversion rate in compost for what you're bringing in?
About 60% is going out the doors compost.
Okay.
We're moving. So we still have 40%. We'll get about somewhere around 5 to 8% from the metals. And then we have some others. So we're about 72. I think we're right around 72% when you look at our like recycling drop-offs and cardboard recycling, tires and things like that.
And the rest of that's going to the class 1?
Actually going to the class 3 now.
Okay.
Interesting. Good. Any other questions? No? Appreciate all you're doing over there to keep everybody clean and in good shape in Sevierville.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we got one more here, Mr. Davis. If you come forward, introduce yourself. Tell us what you're doing in Memphis. I don't think it. There we go.
Here I am. Okay. Thank you.
You need to get that up.
Yeah, let me see how to do this. Am I missing it? Is that me? Hey, there you go. Thank you, Chairman Reeves and Chairman Todd and members of the task force. I appreciate the opportunity to share some context and perspectives from the city of Memphis. My intent today is to provide an operational perspective that may be helpful to the task force as they examine solid waste diversion, processing, and disposal across Tennessee. So I'm Philip Davis, Solid Waste Director for the City of Memphis. My background includes municipal solid waste operations, regional planning and coordination, and prior experience as TDEC Solid and Hazardous Waste Deputy Director. I'll be speaking today from an operator's perspective, focused on how solid waste systems function in practice. Memphis acts as a dense urban core within Shelby County, which is the state's largest county by population. Each of the 7 municipalities in unincorporated county operate independently, but long-term disposal capacity and planning considerations occur at the regional scale. That distinction is important when discussing planning versus day-to-day operations. The city of Memphis services approximately 181,000 residential and small commercial customers each week. Residential service includes weekly garbage and recycling collection and twice monthly bulk waste collection. Small commercial services are provided by the city is limited to cart-based and cart-based garbage collection only. Difficult for me to say. Service delivery is provided through a combination of city crews and contracted service. The city operates transfer stations, owns the regional materials recovery facility, and holds a permit for a Class 1 landfill that has not been constructed. Supporting this system requires a substantial workforce and asset base, including a fleet of vehicles and container infrastructure. Our transition to single-stream recycling was implemented in 2016 through a phased rollout supported by a third-party zero-interest infrastructure financing. I mention this to highlight that there's a lot of long-term and capital-intensive nature to this solid waste system. Despite the scale and complexity, core services are delivered pretty consistently, representing roughly 25 million customer interactions annually. Over time, we've developed data-driven route optimization and workforce adjustments to improve operational efficiency, and service reliability has been maintained despite inflationary cost adjustments. Recycling and diversion outcomes need to be viewed in context. In Memphis, single-stream recycling represents a relatively small share of the residential material stream. At the same time, diversion as defined by TDEC includes multiple pathways, and the Shelby County region has consistently met or exceeded the state's 25% diversion goal. In Memphis, we're also exploring expanded organics management through a city-owned, privately operated composting facility. This reflects how local systems pursue additional diversion pathways primarily through local initiative and regulatory coordination rather than new state funding. Several structural factors shape outcomes across many systems. Disposal economics often favor Class 1 landfilling. Processing alternatives may be limited regionally, and density and land use patterns affect collection logistics and illegal dumping dynamics. Behavioral factors matter, but they interact closely with the system design. Participation and contamination are influenced by trust, clarity, access, and incentives. Drop-off locations provide additional access, but contamination and improper use of service or disposal pathways remain ongoing challenge. The easiest, least costly option does not always reinforce the behavior the system is trying to encourage. Stepping back, a few broader observations emerge. Availability and proximity to infrastructure matter. Diversion performance reflects the mix of available management pathways. Housing density and service design affect participation and contamination, and market conditions shape what is feasible. From a statewide planning perspective, infrastructure availability is critical. Individual participation is essential, but outcomes are also shaped by the built environment, system design, clarity, incentives, and enforcement consistency. It is also useful to recognize how funding mechanisms tied to in-state disposal volumes interact with the evolving disposal pathways, and how many systems across the state are managing aging infrastructure and aging transfer and processing infrastructure. This slide, it provides a brief example of how how state and local support work together in practice. This support is valuable and targeted, but they fund a much smaller scale than the overall cost of operating a large solid waste system. The Shelby County plan that we're working on right now provides a long-range planning framework and draws on both facility-based tonnage data and jurisdictional reporting collection data. These data sets serve different purposes, and recognizing the distinction between the two help ensure planning decisions are informed are informed by a full picture. County planning does not direct municipal operations or funding. Its role is to support regional capacity evaluation, coordination with state permitting processes, and long-term forecasting through a shared planning baseline. The county planning process also highlights several themes relevant beyond Shelby County, including there's finite disposal capacity, there's a variation in diversion potential by material type, the importance of consistent communication, and regional differences. Taken together, these observations highlight the diversity of solid waste systems across Tennessee and the importance of flexible, data-informed planning that account for differences in density, markets, and infrastructure. Thank you again for the opportunity to share this operational and planning context. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for that information. You might have mentioned this and I might have missed it, but do you have your own landfill in Shelby County somewhere?
So we utilize contracted landfill services. We do have a permitted Class 1 landfill that was permitted in the 90s, right when the Solid Waste Management Act came into being, but that permit's never been constructed. So we utilize Republic Services North and South Shelby landfill for our Class 1 landfill.
Well, what's the capacity as far as, you know what you have left on that?
Depending on the author and audience, I've heard anywhere between more than 25 and up to 100 years of capacity in both facilities.
There's a lot of people who love to send trash your way with that kind of capacity.
Class 1 capacity is not the problem in Memphis.
That was the main things I was going to talk about. What questions have you got? Yeah, Ms. Stacy.
Thank you, Chairman Reeves. Philip, thank you for coming today. A couple of items I wanted to point out. Can you go back to the grant piece of it?
Sure.
So I wanted to talk about this because it's got a couple of different items, and I know the state of Tennessee is working on their 10-year plan, and I think it's really important that we've got to all work together to, one, make sure that regional boards and the plans all come together, that TDEC, that they work together and they meet up with each other. And then there's also, as we've discussed here, you know, when plans are created, when they go to TDEC, there's got to be someone at TDEC who is reviewing those and make sure that they are correct. One important factor that several of you may know or you may not know, and Philip, I'll let you explain this a little bit. Jeremy, you probably know this, but in the statute, there is a grant that only the 4 largest cities with the recycling grant receive every year. That's Shelby County, Davidson County, Hamilton County, and Knox County. And this is in the statute. So, and Philip, can you just talk a little bit about the money you received and how that works?
Sure. So that's the recycling rebate. And so each year when we meet our 25% diversion goal for the county as a region, we get a portion back through a calculation that TDEC performs, money back to each of the big 4 counties. Shelby County being a single county region, but made up of 7 municipalities and unincorporated Shelby County, kind of divvy that up based on population. Like this year in this example, we were awarded $167,000, City of Memphis, largest population in the county. The unincorporated Shelby County opted to not accept their portion of that rebate and deferred it to us. So that got added to that $167,000 for us to use on recycling infrastructure. In Memphis, we generally use that on recycle carts, sometimes recycle collection vehicles, but that gets a little bit messier because we don't have unitaskers anymore. We buy 32 cubic yard packers. It may be used in garbage collection on Monday. On Wednesday, it may be used in recycle collection. And that gets a little bit messier to call it recycling infrastructure if it's being used in both. But I spend about $1.25 million a year on recycle carts. So that's easy to eat up
Is this an ongoing grant you have to reapply for every few years?
Every year it comes back to the city when we meet our APR goal or the region based on the goal.
Do you know why we're just doing 4 counties?
I don't know the history. Nick, do you happen to know Nick, do you know the history? So we've got someone. Nick is no.
I'm just wondering if that's something we could expand in time. If Smith County out here wants to get to 25%, could they get grant
Well,
money?
I will Marshall.
Yeah, I can try based on, I can put on my old TDEC hat. It's about 14 years old, but I think it was set forth in the statute and it was done early on in the 90s, early 90s.
But it's based on your 25% diversion.
But it's based on the region meeting the 25% diversion.
But only those 4 counties are the ones. So, and I thought that was an important piece of information that you may know or you may not know. Also, while we're talking about the planning and the grants, Philip received a $250,000 grant from TDEC to help him with his 10-year plan, updating his 10-year plan. I know I'd asked the estimated cost of the TDEC plan is going to be, I think, upwards of $900,000 that's going to be spent on that plan. And I just want to emphasize, I think it's, once again, we have to make sure that these regional plans and the state plans are coming together and are married together, and that there's some accountability to make sure that it's not just a check mark, we received it. We've got to make sure that they are helping each other, because one, we are investing so much money in this. I know, the last 10-year plan, nothing came from it. I've got a nice dusty binder in my office that I'd be happy to share or recycle with anybody, but nothing came out of it. So, and I think this is an opportunity for this task force and members here, for us to look at this to make something good come of this plan. So, and then another question that I wanted to bring up, there is a lot of airspace capacity in Memphis and the West Tennessee area. I know at the last task force meeting that the presentation that was given, it showed that there's a lot of airspace capacity in West Tennessee. There's efficient capacity in East Tennessee. Where it was lacking was in Middle Tennessee. So, but, one of the ongoing issues, and I know we're going to talk about this, is that with the continued volumes of leaving the state of Tennessee and going out of state. And part of that, I know, Philip, you're probably, the city's contract is probably going to be coming up to bid. And I did just a quick calculation. If your bid goes to company X and it goes out of state, that's $312,500 based on your annual tonnage. That money would be lost at TDEC. And those funds are what help counties have the availability to build a new recycling center like Mayor Mason needs. And so we've got to look at this big picture to make sure that we are keeping it whole and making that work.
Let me ask you one more thing real quick. You mentioned you're looking into composting options as well, similar to what Mr. Leonard's doing.
Yes, sir. So not similar, I guess we're looking at windrow composting, which is a little bit different than what they're doing. But we've got a 16-acre site south of the TVA combined cycle and TVA Allen steam plant down south of downtown Memphis, right on the river. So it's a big swath of land that's controlled by the Memphis Shelby County Port Authority. It's currently permitted as a Tier 2 composting facility, so it can accept vegetative debris and also food waste. We've contracted and working through the contract process right now with Denali We Care, which is a large composting company, operates all over the country, all over the United States. We're working to execute a sublease and then a long-term contract to bring organics recycling to the Mid-South. Similar, back in the, say, 96, 97 timeframe, the city of Memphis has a piece of property co-located with one of my transfer stations down off Lamar and 240. That facility is owned by the city. The building is owned by the city, but inside that building is Republic Services currently operating the region's materials recovery facility. And so in the 90s, we kind of did the same thing. We created an opportunity for recycling to come to the Mid-South in the 90s. Now I'm trying to do it with organics recycling.
Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, thanks again, Philip, for your presentation, and it's good to see you.
Hey, good to see
It's been
you.
a while,
Yeah,
back
been
in
a
the old
minute.
TDEC days. Just got some follow-up questions to your presentation. When
Sure.
you said that long-term planning occurs at the regional level, are you're saying that the county and the city together, or is there a larger region that you're
So
talking
it's-
about? It's just,
It's the county. Now we do have the Mid-South Development District that develops the needs assessment. They touch a bigger area than just the single county, Shelby County region. They actually go into Arkansas and Mississippi as well. But the county as a region plans for landfilling capacity, like say for local approval after the permit application's cleared zoning, it goes to the regional board for approval prior to going to TDEC.
is there a intention to develop the permitted landfill in the county?
Not at this time.
Okay.
It's an asset on the books, and we also use it like in 3 years. To Ms. Cothran's point, in 2027, actually, it's not 3 years away now. We have our disposal contract that's coming up for bid. It's been a long-term BFI, now Republic Services contract, but there is a MSW facility that's opened and are actually expanding their permit in Marshall County, Mississippi. I think two of our region's member municipalities have recently started sending their waste to Mississippi. And, I'd be derelict in duty if I did not put a bid out and get my best price.
Sure.
I think I'm the largest tipping fee payer in the state. And I generate a lot of waste.
So your long-range planning though does involve maybe looking at the viability of landfill capacity outside of the region to satisfy your need, right?
Definitely.
least right now,
It'd be, in my waste characterization study and solid waste plan that we're putting together right now, we definitely weighed in Waste Connections, Marshall County, Quad County facility.
So to Stacy's point, and I'm not bashing
Okay.
Memphis, but if you contracted with a Mississippi landfill, all your tipping fees would go to the state of Mississippi.
They go to
right?
Jackson.
You mentioned in your slides that single stream recycling is just a small share. How do you meet the 25% diversion goal?
A lot of class 3 diversion of mainly yard waste, which is why I want to expand organics recycling. My motivation is I send a lot of vegetative debris that shouldn't go to even a C&D landfill, and I want to take that 175,000 tons or so a year and compost as much as I can.
Okay. And then I assume that your comment about disposal economics favor class 1 is just because class 1 landfill is cheaper.
Yep. The tipping fee, and the available airspace in Shelby County, that tipping fees is pretty low.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mr. Hooper.
Philip, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you.
You mentioned long-term planning requires flexibility. Can you provide some examples of what you mean by that?
Like the composting, trying to develop composting, an outlet for organic material, and also just looking at the waste stream. Like we're going to have a very clearer insight on what the breakout of recyclability is, what's going in the landfill right now. When we complete this waste characterization study and solid waste plan, tentatively, I'm seeing about probably 27% of my waste being organic that could be diverted to composting. So the flexibility of being able to pivot like that, but also monitoring the markets. Recycling right now in Memphis, I'm not a commodities trader. And so that's why I feel more comfortable with contracting out the service of processing and selling those commodities. And even if I were really tied into the commodities market, the flexibility for the city of Memphis to be able to switch gears and go with this outlet versus this outlet because cardboard prices have done this in the last 30 days, that feasibility is not there.
Thank you. And, we've talked about waste leaving and coming into the state, and Memphis being right on the border, you have an interesting perspective, and we share the border with a lot of different states. So what is your perspective of being in a community that's right on the border? How do you have to think about waste management? Do you think about it much with Mississippi, or what kind of conversations do you have with them?
I don't have a lot of conversations with DeSoto County, Marshall County. At the, I guess, government level, we do look at what those communities, DeSoto County and South Haven, Olive Branch, what they're bringing into Memphis, because quite frankly, I mean, one of our landfills that's actually in the city limits is right on the state line in southern part of the city, and I want to protect that capacity for what I need it for. I mean, there's interstate commerce that I've got to deal with, and there's not a lot of blocking it that could be done, but we have to be cognitive of the tremendous amount of growth that's going on in North Mississippi and how that will affect disposal capacity for Memphis.
Representative Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Jeremy, you may have to answer this question. A while ago, he mentioned being one of the largest tipping fees contributors to the state. Where do those tipping fees go to?
So the class 1 tipping fees, there's $1.25 per ton on each class 1 landfill. 35 cents of that, 35 cents per ton, funds the solid waste program at TDEC. So those are our folks that are doing inspections, helping write permits, review them, inspect complaints. 90 cents per ton goes to our group that we call materials management. And they are the ones that give out, they do a lot of different stuff. They support solid waste planning, but that's where our grants, which Stacy has mentioned several times, that's the pot of money that we give back out in grants for solid waste infrastructure, recycling, collections, et cetera.
So those municipalities that send their waste across state lines, the state does not get that tipping fee, but yet they're still eligible to apply for those grants?
This question has been brought up several times. I mean, yes, it's been brought up several times by Stacy and our board. And I think it's a fair question, right? Like, if you're sending waste out of state, should you be eligible for grants from that?
No.
And I don't know if we have the authority to deny them, but it's been something our folks have been looking into.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and that's just kind of, I guess, the price to play.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to, that's the way I understood it, but I wanted to make sure I was not incorrect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Chairman Todd.
Cities and counties don't pay that. We pay that. If you send your trash, a county sends their trash, they don't pay that fee. We write that check back to them because we're the landlord.
Right.
Mr. Davis, I wanted to get into a few more just of economics. You mentioned you're not a commodity trader, but I'm trying to get the big picture of there's a cost to put trash in a landfill.
Right.
What are the economics of recycling? I'm always asking that question, and I've asked it 1,000 different ways to a lot of the presenters here already, and I still don't have my hands around it. I don't know that there's a magic answer for sure, or a single answer, but for you, your experience, if your cost to put a ton of trash in the landfill versus the portion of that ton, let's just say another ton of recyclables going to a third party, I think you said, that actually manages the sale of that. What is is there a difference in cost? Is it more or less the same?
I mean, our contract with Republic operating the MRF right now, and that contract is up in August, and we're working through what our path forward is on that. Definitely want to keep recycling in the Mid-South. It's probably been a year and a half or so since I put pen to paper for basically calculating a tip fee, because that current contract is really based on an average commodity rate, what they sell, what we deliver, what they process, how much volume of each commodity type there is, what the value that month is when it goes to sale. There's a big complicated formula to it. But the last time I looked at it, probably in the last 18 months, it was about twice as much to recycle it than it was to bury it in the hole.
Okay. Well, that's the kind of summary I was looking for. I didn't expect that number, but that is the summary of it. And so the value, I guess one would surmise that the value of those recyclables to the end users is just not high enough to support the recycling idea on its own.
On its own, but I will say, having been in kind of the garbage world for 25 plus years, the Resource Conservation Recovery Act, the federal act, we're talking about Subtitle D, the non-has side. The resource that I believe we're conserving is the landfill airspace. We're trying to conserve that for industry, job creation. That's the resource we want to reserve that capacity for economic and job growth rather than fill it up with leaves and grass that should be composted or diverted.
Oh, and for the compost, to me, that's a no-brainer.
Right.
That has to be done. We shouldn't be
Right.
putting things like that in a landfill, class one landfill. But just plastics, aluminum, I hear the aluminum, the things we were talking about earlier in the presentation that was given. And I keep asking the aluminum folks, if you're literally buying trash aluminum cans from Canada so that you have enough material to make new stuff, why aren't you paying more at our recycle centers, at our junkyards, the metal recyclers? My understanding is it's not very much. So it's not worth people actually bringing those in and turning them in for cash. So I don't understand the economics of that. How can you ship them? And I'm not talking about you, but how can these manufacturers ship that in from Canada? They're buying it, they're paying the freight, but yet they can't pay more here. I haven't figured that out yet. So, but anyway, that just goes to that whole component of each one of these recyclables has a value. What is it compared to what it costs to landfill it? And I just keep weighing that out. Yes, it feels better to recycle and reuse, but the end user, my consumers, my taxpayers, my voters, I can't see going down a road that costs them more money just to feel good. Now, some manufacturers, some bottlers especially, have chosen to spend more money. They're literally importing trash from other countries so that they get a certain recycled content. That's an advertising thing. That's a marketing decision they've made. And if we can get them more, great. But I just can't see my consumer paying more right now to do that. So that's why I'm asking the question as I am. You're in it. You see a number of sides of it. You've been in it a long time. So, and I felt like you give some guidance on that.
No, and the dynamics are pretty complex, because the value of that glass or aluminum or plastic, a lot of it depends on transportation cost. And, I may be sending my glass to special services in Atlanta. The weight of the glass, the amount of diesel, that it takes to get it there. There's a high cost to that, which drives up, or I guess drives down the value of that commodity being shipped someplace. Back to economic development, if some of these processors that were or end users that were reprocessing this waste into car bumpers or whatever, if they were local, all of a sudden that dynamic changes. And so you may see, the value of a commodity in Memphis being different than the value of a commodity in Johnson City.
Ms. Barrett.
A very robust conversation. Thank you. I believe that when we do look at the economics, when you see higher volume, you will see a higher price come in for what's available. And as we look at different modes of transportation, you also see a change in cost as well. So I believe there are efficiencies that can be put into the formula going forward. I wanted to back up. I have another question for you, sir, but I wanted to back up and do some clarification on the grant question that came about. First of all, it's the top 5 counties, populous counties. Rutherford County participates in that, so I didn't want us left out.
So sorry.
That's okay. By statute, it's the top 5 populous counties that get 50%, no more than 50% of the grants monies that set aside that come from the tipping fees. The other counties can participate in matching grants if it's for recycling equipment and such. It's spelled out in statute, but there is a formula for it. It's top 5. We get it by population. That 50% is divided between the 5 counties and their main city, capital city, if you will, by population, and can be no more than 50% of the total grant monies that are in there. We do still have to apply for it. If we don't get it, even though it's allocated for us. So, oh, the question. Yes, thank you. It's been a day. You mentioned in your presentation that that TDEC allows for multiple pathways beyond recycling for meeting the diversion. What are some of those other pathways that can allow a county to reach the 25% diversion and it not really be recycling?
The main one's Class 3 diversion. Sending it to a Class 3 landfill is included in the diversion calculation.
Or sending it out of your county to another county?
I don't know whether or not if sending it to in-state still counts as diversion or not.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mallon.
So you brought up just conversationally RECRA for a second, and this is sort of out of left field, but in terms of just the concept of conserving landfill space for all those other good purposes, what are your feelings about incineration?
I mean, I don't really have a positive or negative on it. My experience is I haven't seen an incineration proposal where all the recent incineration proposals that have been brought to me seem to, I can't do the mass balance equation. My background is I have a master's degree in inorganic geochemistry, which is heavy bench chemistry background. And I want to see, like, okay, these are your inputs. How does that mass balance equation work out? And there's always this miracle that happens where it's only water and oxygen that comes out on the other end, and that
the alchemy.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're just uniquely situated, degree TDEC time regulating, certain people in this room. And I just in the back of my mind, I keep thinking about incineration as, one of those options that does conserve landfill space, but it ends up with hazardous remains.
Yep, you do definitely end up with residues, and your communities that can consider it realistically also have to look at their air emissions and what their local, especially in your heavily populated, heavily industrial areas, what that's doing to their air emissions.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Duckett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to go back to the issue of how Memphis is uniquely situated in the corner of the state. And I would hope that none of my colleagues on the task force would look illy on the fact that Memphis would be considering the potential of transporting compost and or solid waste to Mississippi, because the unique demographics of Memphis, when you look at the 2 sites that were mentioned, those 2 sites are in areas where if you haven't heard, not in my backyard, you will hear, not in my backyard, because those two sites are where XAI has placed their Colossus supercomputer facilities, and those sites, good, bad, or indifferent, from a median income perspective, are below median income. So I think it behooves the city of Memphis to be looking for other alternatives and not be penalized for it, because when you look at other areas in Memphis, there are not many to choose from.
And I'll add, just, I mean, we operate as a special revenue fund. So we bill our customers on their utility bills. And that billing on the utility bill in a community where 25% of my customer base falls below the poverty line is a very that's a touchy subject to start going up on people's utilities, on their utility bills, especially when you have that population dynamic.
Mayor?
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, sir, for your presentation. And I was reminded when Mayor Mason made a comment that when the convenience centers are closed, you can expect illegal dumping. I'm from a small municipality in comparison to you, Cleveland, Tennessee. Our problem is with the class ones not being able to accept tires. We have an enormous illegal tire dumping problem. They even extrapolate it to, that's why our mosquito population is increasing. I can't put that math together yet, but what does a city your size, we're struggling at our size. What are your current plans or future plans for tire recycling?
Yeah, definitely. So we, just the city of Memphis, I pick up probably 250,000 illegally dumped tires annually. Waste tire it's classified by TDEC as a problem waste. I mean, it is a problem statewide. We see, along with all illegal dumping tires, but all illegal dumping primarily, dead end streets, things like that. But where we see the biggest impact is our ingress egress to the city. It's like people will come in town, do some work, tear out somebody's cabinets and do some remodeling and then on their way out of town, just before they cross the city limits, dump it out, empty the trailer and then go on home. And so illegal dumping and tires is a problem. And my answer for it right now is people and equipment. More people, more equipment to throw at it. We are working with a new division of city government, community enhancement. They've pulled code and environmental enforcement out of public works and kind of stood it up as a standalone division of government reporting directly to the executive. And we are helping fund additional environmental enforcement officers because there's only so much people and equipment you can throw at certain things. Contamination with recycle is another one. People stealing service and, abusing the system, putting construction demolition material in front of their house and oversized tree debris, things that they're not supposed to put in front of their house, that we're not supposed to pick up. So now it's time for behavior change. And that's one of the things we're doing is funding more enforcement officers to handle that.
Yes, sir.
We moved our codes and put them under the police to give them a little bit more teeth.
That was discussed, but the ultimate decision was code and environmental enforcement to stay separate.
Any other comments from Mr. Davis? No. One just final, I want you to react to just one thought.
Okay.
So if Tennessee landfills are taking trash from outside of our state it's clearly impacting capacity. Fair enough?
Yes.
And if Tennessee counties are transporting trash outside of our state to landfills outside the state, it's impacting tipping fees. True?
That is true.
So what are your thoughts if we just said as a state, Tennesseans are going to take care of our own trash and nobody else's? And we kept it all here. We couldn't go out and it couldn't come in. What are your thoughts to that?
I think when the Jackson Law and the Profil case back in the 90s occurred, I think that went to the Supreme Court and that was determined to be an interstate commerce issue and that
Okay.
we couldn't do that.
So we're not allowed to do that.
Yeah. I'm certainly not an attorney, but yeah, it is. Every time we've talked about this, interstate commerce comes up.
Okay. All right. Anything else from Mr. Davis? Okay. Thank you, sir.
No, thank
All
you.
right.
More, I guess, well, to both of you, in terms of what you just said, an attorney general opinion, I mean, you've got issues, but if there's a compelling need, then I think the analysis is a little different. It might be worth asking for an AG opinion and framing that question that you just narrated really specifically in terms of not having landfill space for what we need it for in the future as the compelling interest to do what you just said.
Right. Chairman Todd?
Not a bad point, but I doubt that a compelling interest is going to override contract law. Because many of these are driven by contracts that somebody like, for example, a private landfill in Tennessee says, they built their model on taking trash from wherever. And I don't think any judge is going to override that. I would imagine.
Okay.
As we say, it depends.
Ms. Thomas?
Just my 2 cents worth, and it's been a while since I've looked at this issue, but I don't think there's a big problem in Tennessee saying we're going to keep our waste in the state, but it's the keeping the stuff out of state from coming in. That's where
That's
the
the issue.
interstate commerce clause comes in, is prohibiting that waste from
Okay.
coming in. So
Thank you, sir. All right. So it's almost 3:00, and we got a couple of other things I'd love to do before we get out of here today. But I feel like the content's been great today. Lots of information, lots of presenters, and I felt like it was worth us letting all this play out the way we did to go through. But we'd started off. Everybody should have a copy of this page necessarily. We talked about some ideas. And a number of the members of this committee all submitted ideas, and we certainly don't have time to spend an enormous amount of time on all of these, but I thought as a committee, it might have some value in sharing, letting a couple of the members share what they were thinking. Let's talk about it for a few minutes and move on to it. Be great if we could be done with all this by 3:30 or a little bit after, then call it a day. But I was going to start with Ms. Kern. And Misty, you actually had 3 things that you had recommended on there. What's that? One big one. And we kind of broke it into 3. You're welcome to, do you want to grab one of those, but just kind of, I highlighted the one that I thought made sense, but if you want to go another direction, you can. But why don't you share with the committee your idea on something we ought to consider doing?
Sure. Really, my idea was, I guess, kind of a combination of things, because I do think it's going to take a combination of things and a lot of public-private partnerships to pull off what we want to. I could just say I want to do what severe waste is doing everywhere, and I think it would take care of our problems, or a lot of them. But really, it was more of a combination of implementing some curbside recycling throughout the state, not just in heavily populated areas, but also providing maybe a near curbside service in more rural areas for people to participate in. Also, I think you really have to utilize the MRFs. And if you could implement some AI sorting capabilities, I think that would really kind of help that process and be less cumbersome and labor intensive. Also, divert organics and recycled content to offer incentives for manufacturers and retailers who want to participate in these things, instead of implementing, I guess, fines or some kind of discipline for not. And that's kind of.
There's two or three things there you mentioned.
Yep. So kind of an overview. I guess the big one out of all of that would really be incentives, grants, tax breaks for retailers, manufacturers that help with this process.
So the way we put it on here was incentives for manufacturers, incentives, like you said, grants or tax breaks for in-state manufacturers and retailers to participate in recycling and composting efforts, assist in back-of-house infrastructure. So what
Yes.
is that?
Yes, basically. And a lot of this is based on some experience that I have had with my company implementing some of these things. We are getting no revenue from this, but we are partnering in our Chattanooga market with a composter for our stores. We have 18 locations that are currently composting there to offset waste. And in the Kingsport market, we have partnered with Eastman Chemical Company to divert plastics there. And we're doing, that just on our own. We get no revenue for that, but we are trying to help recapture and keep things out of the landfill because, as you know, grocers are historically produce a lot of waste.
Right.
So we're trying to find ways to help that.
So committee, what are your thoughts on the state of Tennessee providing incentives, grants, tax breaks for companies like hers that are taking it upon themselves to participate in recycling and composting efforts? What are your thoughts? Give an opinion on it? Somebody?
Well, it's excellent. I mean, from what we heard, from what Misty said, what Philip talked about, what Mr. Leonard talked about. I mean, obviously we need to go down that path and look at it. So, and, as we talked about with the fee structures, there's an avenue already in place with TDEC, with the materials management group, to offering those grants available. I think we just need to look at that big picture to make sure that those opportunities are available, readily available to everyone that's interested in doing that.
Okay. What else? Any other opinions or reactions to this idea?
I'm always in favor of a tax break for businesses because businesses ultimately do not pay taxes. They pass it on to the consumer, which are my customers. So anytime that can be an incentive, I'm all for it.
I have no idea what something like that would cost. Do you?
Well, I think anything that we are going to implement to correct this problem is going to cost money. We're going to have to invest money, multiple places, I think, to make this successful. It is going to cost money. We just have to decide how much and where that's going to come from.
Yeah, Ms. Barrett.
Well, when we look at, I appreciate the comments, and it actually has been some of the things we've been looking at in the Rutherford County area, started discussions on. But when we look at our convenience centers, particularly in some of the small areas, they don't allow small businesses to drop off recyclables there. Not only could that increase our numbers, but it would give an outlet for small businesses to have a avenue for those recycling methods. And currently, right now, there is no directive or request that those small businesses be allowed in our convenience centers. And it varies from county to county. Warren County gladly accepts small business recyclables at all the convenience centers. Rutherford County does not. So again, we don't have consistency between what is accepted at those convenience recycle centers.
Good. What are the negatives to this idea? Yes. Yes, sir.
So we don't accept businesses at our convenience centers, but we do allow them to come to our main location and they can bring it there. And the reason we don't let it at the convenience centers is because they can very quickly overload the process. When you get ice cream people that show up with a box truck full of cardboard and it literally fills your can up, you're suddenly out of capacity for everybody else, which means they're taking their cardboard and they're going, well, it's always full, so I'm just going to throw it away. So like we do provide another outlet for them to do it. We just don't take it at the centers.
That's good. So, Mr. Duckett.
Yep. My thought is, from a structural perspective, we just need to get all of the ideas out there and then weigh the pros and cons of each to then come up with a conclusion in terms of what we think is doable for the state of Tennessee. I have looked at the different synopsis of what has been presented. I can find positives and negatives
Sure.
with each, but I think we as an organization or as a task force should really go back and do a whiteboard and get everything up there and then try to come up with a solution. Because if I'm asked to comment on the grants, I'm all in favor of it. But where are they going to come from? I mean, at the end of the day, someone has to pay for the grants. So having more of a holistic assessment of all thoughts, in my opinion, would potentially lead to a better outcome for us to make a recommendation back to the legislature in terms of what we think is the best option for us to address.
Totally agree. You know, we find being down here for a while, there's lots of good ideas that all require money. I mean, in everything we do, there's not a lot of bad ideas. It's just ultimately you've got to prioritize what you want to do, but it's good thoughts. Any other comments on just overall, just as we're thinking out loud here on her ideas? No? Okay. So let's keep kind of working just through some different suggestions here. Stacy, do you want to talk regional planning? Do you want to talk transfer stations? Which one would you rather hit?
Well, I mean, I think this meeting today, we've talked already about, the surcharge and the transfer stations and, going out of state, and how do we capture that? Do we keep, put a fee on transfer stations that are shipping out of state so that we keep the funding robust with TDEC with that money? Because, currently it says, the $1.25 fee is assessed and collected whenever materials cross the scale and are disposed of in a Class 1 landfill in Tennessee. So when they go out of state, it's not collected. And then, but as Jeremy said, that's where the money for grants come from. So, and has the opportunity. So I know we talked about that a lot. So also, I think we hit on the plans that with TDEC creating their new 10-year plan. I think it's very important that as we look at our regions and the planning that, is there or not there. I mean, Matthew and I and Doug, we're in the Marshall-Murray Regional Planning District. That plan, to my knowledge, hasn't been updated in 30 years, I don't think. So, I mean, so it's something we've got to look at. And then, as I said, we've got to put some responsibility back on TDEC when they do receive plans, that they are reviewing them. It's not just a check mark. Oh, thank you, I received it. Somebody's got to be reviewing that to make sure what plans are submitted are real. So, I mean, and then also, that falls into the other item of consolidating regional planning processes and looking at that. I goofed on my quote, my 4 counties and my 5 counties. I'm so sorry, Donna. I can't believe I said 4, not 5. And I knew that. So I apologize. But, based on the map, how many individual regions there are, and looking at that, I think we need to look at that big picture to see, what can we do better there to make it work better? Because it's all, it's all over the place. And then you got to keep in mind, what's good in West Tennessee is probably not the greatest thing for Middle or East, but we have to come up with something that's good for everybody across the state of Tennessee. And each region is so different. So that's a hard piece of the puzzle.
I've heard a few times in the last number of weeks about, we have, I think there's 9 regional districts, and they've all got big jobs, and solid waste is supposed to be part of that. but I'm not sure they all take it as serious as they need to. So then we have these separate solid waste boards, like the one that Donna oversees one. So in some situations, it might be duplicative in some areas, and then in other areas, it's vital to protect the interest. So does the committee overall have an opinion on how to address that and thoughts through it? I mean, anybody even want to open that can of worms? Yep. I mean, I'm not saying we break anything, but what's your opinion?
Probably not what you all think. I don't think we have enough information on the duties of those different entities all involved to throw out suggestions at this point in time.
Okay.
Development districts were developed quite a while ago. Their roles and duties have evolved over the years. If you look at statute, you've got CTAS that has a hand or a seat at the table if they want it, if they're asked, MTask. And again, we're looking at something that identified entities 50 years ago that have robustly changed over the time. And I think now would not be the time to start throwing out, let's merge this, let's merge that, when we don't even know what the real duties are at this present time versus what was put in statute. That's just something, as we've been unfolding every topic that's come along, we've done a great job in these 3 meetings. I have been very impressed with all the information that has come forward, very enlightening. We need to give that topic its due time as well.
Any other thoughts? Yes, sir.
I would agree. I mean, probably be good to sort of organize a list and categorize all the folks who statute or whoever say are supposed to be involved with solid waste planning or whatever. Because, I mean, you're right. It says development districts are supposed to play a role. You've got the Part 8 boards, MTAS, CTAS. So I think it'd be good for us to understand at least what is out there in statute and elsewhere that says these folks are supposed to play the following roles.
Any other thoughts? Yes, Stacy.
Just one other to lead into what Donna and you said, Jeremy, and I know we know this, Donna. I mean, over the years that this has been in place, TDEC has put money towards development districts. Then they took money away from development districts. Then they gave it back to development districts. So we need to. That would be part of that list. Is, the give and take back and forth. It's like, you're going to do it. No, you're not. You're going to do it. No, you're not. So I think that is a big part of what we need to look at, because we've got to look at what's going to happen down the road. If we want to do great things by 2050, we've got to do that now, because those ideas are from 50 years ago.
Maybe I'm wrong on this. I tend to think that one of the reasons that some of these solid waste boards were created really had a lot to do with just counties trying to protect themselves in their own, which is where so much of the Jackson Law and all of that came from, I would think, along the way. And I don't know the timeline on all of it, but trying to get counties to own it, but to also try to not in my backyard. Yes, sir.
Yeah, along all these lines with these comments, I do agree that it's a quagmire right now about what entity is the right one. I do think that we do need to sort that out as part of what we're doing and figure out who should be involved in solid waste. And the regional planning process right now with the regions, I don't think is working. There shouldn't be single county regions. That's counterintuitive. I mean, the region should be more than one county. And I do think some of those counties did that out of self-defense,
They did.
not being able to play well with other counties for whatever reason. But I think they need to be formed into regions. Now, whether it's the development districts or some other structure or something, I don't know. I concede that there needs to be a lot of straightening out and definition about who those are and who's part of those organizations to make sure every appropriate voice gets a voice in those things. But I do think it needs to be streamlined and consolidated into a single kind of organization. And I do think that the local approval process needs to be streamlined as well. I think it's confusing. It's duplicative. There's several things. And while the Jackson law is, it was well intended in terms of giving a local approval voice to where a landfill was going to be sited, I think it went a little overboard. And I appreciated Scott County's presentation the other day. I'd feel the same way. The problem is if everybody in the state feels that way, there's not going to be a landfill
Right.
in the state of Tennessee. So something's got to give there. It's got to go somewhere. And so there needs to be definitely a local voice, but there needs to be some objectivity put into that process so that landfills, when needed, can be cited. I'm all for reducing the amount of stuff that goes to landfills, reducing the need for landfills, but I don't see us eliminating the need for landfills anytime in the near future. And so I think that process needs to be streamlined as well.
Well said. I mean, the truth is, if the regional districts were working perfectly, you wouldn't have Smith County opening their own landfill.
Right.
They just wouldn't have a need for it. There'd be a plan for their district, and I'm not even sure which region they're in, but it wouldn't make sense. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So we're kind of taking a step back, sort of the 10,000 foot level.
That's
Because now
right.
we're talking about the framework that supports the infrastructure we're going to try to figure out for waste management. Chattanooga and Hamilton County are sort of at odds right now about one planning commission for the county, or whether there should be one for the county and one for the city, because there's philosophically, there's a disagreement about what land use should happen or should go where. So if the legislature can impose some order on that chaos, then I think that's the framework that we build on to go forward and figure out this is a land use issue when you get right down to it. Are there going to be no more landfills? We're going to conserve space and minimize the amount of new ones? I don't know, but I don't think right now in Hamilton County, I don't think the city and the county could even have consensus.
Right.
So that's where, a higher power, because I can't think of a better term,
Sure.
Needs to impose some order on that, whatever the guardrails are that the city and county can use.
Right. Any other thoughts on this topic? Coming back to what Mr. Duckett said earlier, I do think at some point in time, in addition to trying to get ourselves organized overall, we probably do need to have some pros and cons in the bigger scheme of things. And what can we do for the next 36 months? Denny Hastings couldn't be here today, but he submitted some comments. And would you like to just comment on the tire piece?
Sure.
That was his
certainly.
suggestion up here, and I think we at least ought to honor his idea.
Yeah, Mr. Hastings had a medical issue. Something went wrong yesterday with a procedure, nothing terribly serious, but he just couldn't be here. And one of the suggestions he has about tires and tire safety, because there are a number of folks that sell used tires and put them on vehicles back on the road. And at a certain point, they shouldn't be on the road. And his point, I believe, is when they get to that point, there should be a big hole drilled in the side of them so they could not be reused, because it's a safety issue. But many of them are being put back on the road, either on vehicles or on trailers. And that he's just thinking at some point when they get bad enough, they need to be completely disabled. So that couldn't happen.
And to me, that comes back to the point we've made all along, which this entire issue is so complex to just have to have just a solution for just tires to help that fits into it somewhere is a big part of it. Okay. Any thoughts on tires? No.
They're expensive.
They are. They're expensive. Okay, I tell you what we're going to do. I wanted to let Miss Barrett, she had some thoughts on a diversion council that were creative, and I've asked her to share that with the committee as well. You want to do that?
I will be brief, I promise. In comparison.
turn on your.
My
mic.
mind is just overflowing with everything we have heard today. And I want to start off by saying that when this committee first met, it began with comments coming across sounding like the state was in dire straits. We were running out of landfill space. We had no solutions. We had to do something. It was imperative. I think everybody can agree with me that over the last 3 meetings, we have seen solutions. Lots of solutions from Sevier County. Yes, I would love to replicate Tom 15 times over in every county. He's wonderful. We have heard from the end users that said, we're here, we want it, bring it to us. But everything right now seems to be fragmented. We've also heard a great need for, and I can focus on a whole bunch of things about what we've talked about, but I want to focus right now on education and cohesiveness. One of the big things we've heard every day is the need for more education, more education. We need the public involved. We need people to know. And basically the 2 questions that need to be answered is, where do I recycle and what can I recycle? We've started a pilot program in Rutherford County, Cannon County, Warren County, and Coffee County. And I want to present that to you really quickly to show you what we've been able to accomplish just since July of this year. And this is just the client-facing or the resident-facing aspect of what all we're working on. It's a much larger plan that can answer all these questions that have been brought to this board. Actually, I presented this 2 years ago to Senator Reeves to start this discussion. So it predates this task force. So I'm going to start first with the program that I have been introducing to all of our Rotary clubs and any institution that will let me get up and present to them. I will tell you that this is not the only education program that's out there. We have them throughout the state of Tennessee. We have Keep America Beautiful. We have Nobody Trashes Tennessee, which is the T-Dot litter program. There are lots of programs out there. Again, it's fragmented. Everybody's working in their own little silos. It's isolated. It's not addressing the larger population that it needs to. And therein is part of the problem and part of a proposal I have to address that. So I want to introduce you to recyclerightTN.com. It is our recycle program. Our mission is to answer the questions, where do I recycle and what can I recycle? And again, I'm going through this quickly. I can share this in other format with anybody that wants to take a look at it, and I can talk for hours on this afterwards. So our first question we answer is, what can I recycle? We actually answer that question by telling everybody to check the triangle. You're going, okay, we haven't heard that phrase yet, Donna, so where does that come from? Did you know that there's a triangle on most all containers of products in your household that tells you whether or not they're recyclable? It's on your plastics. This is a nationwide program that has been started and has successfully been implemented in all our manufacturing across the U.S. in all products, most all products. So you can identify a plastic jug that can be recycled, a plastic jar. This is an ice cream container I've got. Even the toilet paper tells me that the outside container is recyclable, as well as the tube in the middle. And recycling plastic is more than just the water bottles. We talk about the 1s and 2s. If you will look at the picture to the right, those are items from my laundry room through my bathroom. And it's items in every one of those that are 1s and 2s that are recyclable and are identified as recyclable items. Metal cans, this happens to be a suntan metal container that is recyclable. And actually, the average person has the opportunity to recycle more than 25,000 cans in their lifetime. So when we talk about that there is a need for metals, we have identifying marks on them and enough coming through households and individuals to meet the needs that our end users are saying they want and have. And if we just focus on the top 5, paper, plastic, cardboard, metal, and glass, all these are common items that come through every room in your house and your front porch. Not only do this entity identify what is recyclable, it will tell you if it's not recyclable. Anything that is mixed mixed fibers, multi-layered canisters like the Pringles cans, the Amazon bags. Those are not a plastic that is recyclable. My wonderful, easy-to-bake biscuits in the morning, their bag is not recyclable. It's the wrong kind of plastic. So we address and educate our communities on how to identify what can be recycled. Well, then comes the second question: where can I recycle that? And we all hear about the convenience centers, but nobody talks about how broad that recycling entity is already without the logistic problems we have with end users. So in addressing where we can recycle in the 4 counties I've mentioned, I'll take Rutherford County, for example. We have currently 14 convenience centers, but in addition to the 14 convenience centers in Rutherford County, in the 4 regions, in the 4-county region, we have 94 individual private sector partners. 70 of those are located in Rutherford County, and that was when we put this presentation together a month and a half ago. I'm going to stop for a moment and ask Miss Asia Weatherford to stand up. She is my behind-the-scenes person with RecycleRightTN.com. She is largely responsible for this database that gets put together, that is maintained and updated as we get information, and will be checked at least quarterly, if not more often, if we need to. Thank you, Asia. So our website will show, this is what the website looks like. I will go to it very quickly because I want you to see this website. We'll get to that in a minute. I know I'm limited on time. In addition to the website, we have an Instagram page and a Facebook page. We go into detail at each private sector, explaining the electronics, for example, in Staples on the right-hand side, what all they take. Our local business with Mid-10 Metal Exchange, where that is their business model, is to take metals for recycling. We break it down as to what can and can't be recycled or accepted there. At the electronics, in addition to the companies that is their business model, we include entities like Staples and Lowe's, where that is part of their sustainability program within their company, and they have the bins or an item that they accept locally. You heard a talk about battery, some of the items that have been mandated to be recycled, and e-batteries in some states are that item. We can recycle those through Staples. We can recycle those through Lowe's and through Home Depot. So those processes are set up already in our communities for individuals to participate in that. It has always been, what can I recycle and where can I recycle? Individuals did not have that information in front of them. As I indicated, we have a Facebook and an Instagram page, and we routinely send out educational information like this, identifying the 7 types of plastics, what they are, both with definition and pictures. So those go out on our Instagram and Facebook. We partner with the MTSU and support their stop and drop processes in the area. So we can increase their participation at the schools for both the faculty and the students, which is what their recycling locations are limited to. We also participate in the recycle roundups that you've heard a little bit about earlier today from TEC. We collect mattresses. We don't recycle them yet. They can be recycled. There's just a cost that we've got to overcome on that. So that, in essence, is the biggest part of our social education aspect. We do present to all the community programs that we can present to. We have ongoing commercials on our local radio station. We have participated with the city of Murfreesboro on their local channels to get out messages routinely and consistently on how we recycle. Our Facebook has a Friday, Did You Know, and a Monday, What Can I Do? Posting that goes up every Friday, every Monday. And we have a contact us page where Asia is monitoring that daily and answering questions that come in through that. Within the first 30 days of us going live with just the website and presenting it at our county commission, we had 7,000 followers. I'm going to go now, see if I can get this website pulled up, because I really want you to see it, to show you the categories that we have. They tell me dead airtime is not a good thing, but it is for right now. All right, here's Rocky, our little mascot. What I wanted to show you on this, I'm going to take Rutherford County, for example. And as indicated, we have our 14 convenience centers. We provide information. We've made this very simple. Within the first 2 clicks, you're going to know where you can recycle and what you can recycle. You're not going to have to go through 1,000 pages of text to get there. You pick your convenience centers. It will tell you the address. That's you can click on that and it will give you driving directions to the center from where you are. We have the hours of operation there and what items they accept. And then when we go to the private sector items, where the convenience centers are also listed by category, this right here are all the different items that can be recycled in Rutherford County at a location right now. You can physically walk in and drop these items off at a physical location in Rutherford County. With exception, we've got 2 items on here that are mail-ins. Legos has a program, and some clothing have a program. But the key with all of this, every entity researched on here has a true end use. It's not just gone here and then 2 steps later it goes to the landfill. They all are researched and identified as true end users, either that step or the next step down the road. This is a model that we hope when we get it fully fleshed out. On the flip side, we want to have a page for businesses to identify what their opportunities are for recycling. It's just a little different perspective because those are pay entities, and we want to make sure we get everything put in there that we need to. So it's just a little different category for that. We are working on that and hope to have that up in the next 6 months. There's your deadline, Asia. Now, with all of that presented, as we've heard everything come in here, what I'm seeing is, again, fragmented programs that are out there. We have wonderful material management available from TDEC if they're not having to compete with landfills, underground storage, you name the list of things that fall under TDEC. We talked earlier about how these development districts, CTAS, MTAS, have matured and changed in the 50+ years that they've been developed, whenever some of them predate this entity. It's time to bring all of those together and pull that out and have one focus simply on the recycling, the diversion, the composting, anything but landfilling. TDEC's got a pretty good handle on landfilling. Some would say not, but I'm trying to please everybody. Where we are seeing the lacking, and we've heard it time and time again with every presentation, is we need the consistency, we need some standardization, we need the connectivity. I propose that what we need, not only as this board, but as a state and for our end users and for our residents and for our businesses, is a council that we can pull some of the existing efforts that we have from TDEC, the materials management and other areas, and have a clearinghouse, a commission, a council, if you will, that's the focus. Let's make all things diversion happen, and it becomes our think tank committee for that. It is very similar to what we currently do in Tennessee with the election commission. We do not tell states, counties which election equipment to use. We tell them which ones are certified. We provide the same type of training and education from county to county, so it is consistent. But your size of your county and your needs dictate how large, how small, what you utilize, but we tell you what all is out there to utilize. You've heard from some of our county mayors here and some of our solid waste directors. They are bombarded with information. I may have a county that is so small that the mayor is the solid waste director and everything else, the trash pickup man and everything. That's all a county's got. They don't have time to interview a waste to energy, glass pickup company. They just don't. They don't have the bandwidth for that. Others like Memphis probably have so much information we need a brain dump from him. But again, we've got 95 counties working in isolation, and we've got everybody and their brother responsible for recycling, and nobody's doing it. This council would, and I want to preface this by saying that TDEC and ECD would be huge collaborators in this. We need the entities, the businesses coming here. We need to support the businesses that are already here that take the recycling and that need those that are our end users. TDEC has the experience and the information and the historical knowledge, institutional knowledge that needs to come to the table. We need to find all of that funding that is out there currently and put it on the table. We know that there are monies that we allocate through state government. We know that there are monies that come in through the tipping fees and grants. We know that there are EPA monies and grants that are out there. We know that there are monies with Keep America Beautiful. I'm not picking on any one entity. I'm saying it is all over the departments within state government. We don't know what we have. We don't know what the individual entities that are involved are responsible for or are doing. Those are two entirely different things, what they're responsible for and what they're doing. We as this board can sit here and talk about it in a 4-hour meeting until our brains can't absorb because our butts are numb. But we can't come up with the solutions that way. It's going to need to be an intensive group that gets together and comes back to us and says, we've talked to all the solid waste directors. We know what they're missing. We know what works there. Currently, what you have in a way of think tanks have been groups coming together with a third-party roundtable. And I promise you, you ask your solid waste directors and they ask us the same questions every year. We tell them the same thing. Nothing gets done. It gets buried in a report and it gets put on the shelf because some other fire comes up in TDEC or whatever division is working on it and they don't have the time. They're not given the directive that this is your job, your responsibility. This council can be that responsibility. So we set the standards for the vendors. We make sure that anybody that's presenting in Tennessee is financially sound, has the expertise, that we don't become the guinea pig for something, and that there is verified end use, that it's not a circle that just ends up in a landfill. We certify the vendors, again, certifying the vendors, providing standardized recycling layouts. We don't even have standardized signage at our convenience centers. The minimum standards right now for recycling centers, and I won't throw anybody under the bus because it's just what our rules say. It's a convenience center with that provides a dumpster. I'm paraphrasing, but I can pull you the rule if you need me to, on a paved parking lot. Not even all of our centers are paved. So the minimum standards aren't even being met, and we know we need even more than that when it comes to minimum standards, so that when you go from one county to the next, you're experiencing the same thing. You know what you can do from Murray County to Warren County to Knox County. And then standardize the education and awareness programs. We do have education that's required in the school systems, but the curriculum is not standardized. We have Keep America Beautiful that does some education. We have Nobody Trashes Tennessee, TDOT, that does some education, but there's no consistent education. There's no consistent message. That is the premise of why Recycle Right 10 was developed and has been and we are working to enhance that and get that out to all the counties as we can grow it. And our staff needs the education, needs the training. I'm not going to say education. Our convenience workers are great, but as somebody told me earlier, there are still those we can't convince that, yes, you can recycle a pizza box. Now, that's minor. That's a catchphrase, but we do have things that need to be consistent message that goes out across the state. And everybody will play a part in that. That there are services and assets that the cities and counties bring to the table. I'm sorry, wrong one. This will work. Services and assets that the cities and counties bring to the table. There are services and assets that the state brings to the table, and there are services and assets that the federal government brings to the table, as I've mentioned with EPA, as well as private sector. One of the things that Recycle Right 10 is working on now is researching the private grants that are out there, and there are those out there. that are either matching grants or you meet certain criteria and it's there. So we'd like to make that available in a consistent way to all the counties in informing the mayors. We want to take off their plate what they don't need to be doing and give them the tools they need to make it successful and move forward. And again, I think a council like this, like I've mentioned, can be that clearinghouse, that expert repository for information. Minimum standards for glass collections. That's all part of standardizing the system. And I am going to stop there. I've thrown out a whole lot and I was given a limited amount of time, but I wanted to get that on the table before we started going down too many other rabbit holes, because I think a lot of what we're talking about can come through that. And it gives us some action and movement that we can move on and say, we're making progress now.
Very good. For whatever it's worth, next week is bill filing deadline. Okay. We're carrying a handful of things together, but it's not like we've got months and months to come up with something new. And we've got some caption bills we've put in place to hold for some really good ideas that have been out there that we've kicked around in here as a group. But I guess overall thoughts, any initial thoughts on creating a diversion council like she suggested? Any initial reactions to that? Anybody wants to speak to? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are you okay?
I'm good.
Okay. That was very helpful. And you used the word simple and simplify multiple times while you were talking. And I think the diversion group, whatever you want to call it, but someone to focus on a generic, just like Tennessee changed its logo, and it's very thorough. It's just thoroughly used on everything now. And I think it's a great idea. And to what I said earlier, simplify is what we need to do, or else we're just gonna herd cats, because there's just too many loose ends. So whatever we could do to simplify, and I think what you just suggested is useful.
But there are things you have to think about. How many people are on the council? I know she's got her opinions on that. Exactly what are they going to do? How are we going to pay for it? Who are they going to report to? What's the reporting going to be back to this group, back to the General Assembly? There's a lot of details that have to be thought through. But I do tend to agree with one thing, which is we need a dedicated people looking at this all the time. We're not going to figure it out getting together every few months as a group sitting around the table getting presentations in here. It's not going to happen.
I think that the gap analysis that you talked about, talking to the elected officials at the local level to find out what they have, what they need, what they don't need, and it just makes sense. It would make me feel better than whack-a-mole.
Any of the reactions? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Chairman.
I agree. I think part of the information that we've received is the perspective we get is that there's a lot going on out there, but they're ships passing in the night. They're not communicating well with each other. And something like this would give us an opportunity to collate all that data and organize, get it all together and make sure that everybody's knows what's going on. And sounds like a good idea to me.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I started working on this 2 years ago, and I have preliminary numbers that for not only budget but structure. I'd like to flesh that out a little more, but if this body wanted to do a group that we could discuss and come back with legislation to present to the chairman to carry, and then we could flesh it out from there. It literally is very similar to the election commission structure we currently already have in place, budget-wise, size-wise. Obviously, the duties of the positions would change to meet what we needed specific to our industry. But I can put that together and have it ready to distribute to this body next week.
We have some caption bills, so we have some time.
Okay.
And the funding may be there. That's the thing we don't know. I mean, there's a lot of funding in a lot of different areas. I mean, Mr. Hooper, you act like you want to say something.
Yeah, sorry, we were talking about, there's some statutes here, like 843, that kind of touches on some of this. So maybe it could work with or be updated or something like that. Like this one we're looking at that Matt brought up is information clearinghouse, regional workshops and conferences. It may not be exactly what she's talking about, but, kind of along that, yeah, maybe tweaked, or I mean, maybe it needs to be new. I don't know, but just for everyone's awareness, there's other stuff out there.
But it's already in there, so you could, we could update it because it's been in there since 1995. So, but that's a good opportunity.
And again, there are, as I indicated, TDEC does have, we have a lot of it already built in. It just gets covered up with everything else. So fresher eyes, it's standing on its own to be reviewed and given the proper attention that it needs and commitment that it needs. Some of this legislation that's already there would stay. It would just, it diverts over to the Diversion Council so it can get the proper attention that it's been needing to have all along. So yes, some of these things that this council, that we're working on with Recycle Right TN are there, but they've been there for 50 years and have not been flushed out to their fullest that they needed to be, and they deserve that attention.
Agreed. Chairman Todd, what's your thoughts?
I think we have an opportunity legislatively, and it's got to happen fairly quickly so that we have time to run it, because this is going to be a short session. It already feels that way, even with the Snowmageddon or whatever we're going to get. So how does the task force feel about Chairman Reeves and I pursuing something similar to what Ms. Barrett is talking about here within, we would have to probably, most likely thing would have to look at current resources, financial resources. So is there already something in code that money's being collected, money's being spent somewhere, and we might be able to say, we actually have the ability to change state law. So we could say it's going to go here now for this purpose, so that we're not looking for new revenue, which is going to be hard to find this year. And then let's get something started, get a framework started. I just wanted your input on that. That is a possibility that we could work on over the next couple of weeks and have something ready to get rolling.
Share with the
Yeah,
committees.
absolutely.
Share the language and get your thoughts. I mean, I think almost everybody here today has touched on pieces of this that could somehow incorporate. I think my only thought is, I always say this, I don't want to break anything either. It's be nice to kind of ease into it and work it out. But somebody had their hand up? Yes, sir.
So on the diversion council, I think there should be some clarity. This has come up a couple of times here, that class 3 waste counts as diversion. And under the way the current framework is, I just want to make sure that's not what we're talking about. This is what we would consider true diversion and reuse.
Yes. Yes. Any other thoughts, group? It's been a long day. We've covered a lot of good ground together, though. Good. I guess we'll be back in touch with the committee as far as next meetings, next steps, etc. Thank you for your presentation. Anything else you want to say?
Is it the will of this committee that I work with the chairs to draft this?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Seems to be positive.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Do we? So because it's on the agenda, I guess seems like the right thing to do. There is a section here at the end for public comments. Is anyone here that wants to make some public comments today, like some real quick, thoughtful ones? Let's grab her in the back of the room first. Just a few. If you want to come up real quick and just give a few public comments here. You want everybody to come up? Yeah, that's a good idea. You want to form a line? That's a good idea. Thank you, ma'am. So identify yourself and give us a few thoughts.
And is this on? Yeah. Thank you for an opportunity to speak. My name is Michelle Treishman. I'm a landowner and a business owner in Scott County. I was born and raised there. I left to go to school, and I lived outside of Tennessee for many years. I chose to move back. I chose to invest a great deal of money to create a business that benefits our community. I have 2 master's degrees, and I say that not to be braggadocious, but to make a point. The people speaking up in rural Tennessee, such as myself, are informed, engaged, and we're paying attention. We understand what's at stake. I'm here today to make 2 points. First, local control over landfilling, solid waste, and similar industries is becoming a rural voting issue. The idea that the state might take local authority away is not going over well in red, rural Tennessee. This is not abstract. This is something people are factoring directly into how they will vote. Second, as you look at solid waste policy in the Jackson Law, you may want to make limited, careful modifications to account for new technologies emerging in the closed-loop recycling world, such as we've heard a lot of lately. That's reasonable. That's common sense. What rural communities do not want is the Jackson Law weakened or taken away. We want local approval to remain with thoughtful flexibility and not a loss of authority. In Scott County, we are living this. There is a new landfill proposed on 700 acres of property right next to a large existing landfill that sits on 800 acres of property inside the city limits of Oneida, even though the current landfill has a stated capacity for decades. Not an expansion, a new landfill. This was a permit issued in 2010 without the Jackson Law being applied, and although the Jackson Law was in place in our county at the time, there was no solid waste board approval. This permit has laid dormant for almost 16 years and is now trying to be reactivated. I have a common sense question. If capacity already exists for decades, why are we stacking impacts in the same rural community? How is this even allowed to happen? This is what it looks like without local approval. When TDEC came to town to talk about our existing landfill, more than 450 people showed up on a Tuesday night. These are working people, landowners, families, and retirees. In a rural county, that's extraordinary. If 450 people will show up for one landfill meeting, imagine what they'll do when they go to vote if they think their local voice is going to be removed or diminished. And this isn't limited to citizens. Today, I brought copies with me of resolutions of both the Industrial Development Board of Oneida and the Board of Aldermen of Oneida, formally supporting the Jackson Law. These are our leaders responsible for jobs, investment, and economic growth. And they understand that smart development starts with local control. Here's the big concern. These communities need protection, and we're not getting it from the state. Over time, the state has consistently defunded TDEC, while at the same time considering policies that reduce local authority, and that's a dangerous combination. If the state is pulling back oversight, then local governments must not lose their ability to protect themselves. And what we're asking for is this. Keep criteria for landfills and solid waste facilities, but tailor the criteria to fit the actual impact. If an industry claims to be less polluting, fewer emissions, no leachate, a closed system, then fine, adjust the review standards, but do not remove public notice, local hearings, or local approval. Communities still need the ability to look under the hood and decide whether a project is real, responsible, and economically beneficial for their area. We need clear definitions of what qualifies as solid waste facilities versus a closed system recycling or recovery operation. But even with updated definitions, local approval must remain. Rural communities are the ones living with these facilities. We are the ones balancing jobs, land use, property values, and quality of life. People choose to live in rural Tennessee because we value quiet. We value nature. We value space and clean water. When you take away local authority, you threaten all of that without giving communities a meaningful say-so in their own economic future. In conclusion, you can modernize policy and you can encourage innovation. You can solve solid waste problems. I know you can solve these problems. But you can do it without interfering with our existing authority to protect ourselves and plan for our own future. If rural Tennesseans lose local control over landfill and solid waste decisions, they won't just show up at meetings. They'll show up at the ballot box. Thank you for your time today.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments.
My name is Cynthia Willett, and I am a resident and recycler in Rutherford County. And I personally, from the information I've seen and heard, while the Recycle Right is a very valuable service, the things that does not do that would be done with the Tennessee Waste to Jobs Act are, one, the Tennessee Waste to Jobs Act would have the board create curbside pickup for all the residents. Right now, we do not have curbside pickup, and for me to recycle many of the materials, I have to go 5 different places and have 5 different separations in order to do that recycling. Most of my neighbors do not do that. And when I'm walking my dog, I can easily pick up from the local, as I go across any of the roads that cross the creek or whatever, I can pick up 2 grocery bags of good recyclable items, which I do frequently, and take them for the waste to job, getting the curbside pickup and making it easy for our residents. Right now in Rutherford County, we do not have, where I am, we do not have trash pickup. We pay if we want to have trash pickup. So I go to the convenience center because I know I want to recycle. Many of my neighbors don't have that and don't choose to pay the extra to have recycling. Waste to Jobs Act would be a wonderful addition that can happen very quickly, in my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments.
Good afternoon. My name is Margaret Young, and I'm a student at Vanderbilt University and a current fellow for the Rachel Carson Council, which is a national NGO dedicated to environmental advocacy. Thank you for the opportunity to share my opinions with the task force today. I would like to speak about the ensuing environmental and human health risks associated with water contamination due to landfill leachate discharges sourcing from Middle Point landfill. After watching the December 8th task force meeting and comments made about the aluminum salt cakes at Middle Point landfill, I would like to reference and bring to the attention of this task force a position paper from the Aluminum Association, which outlines the current practice of disposing aluminum gel salt cakes in a monocell and not mixing salt cakes with non-related types of waste. There is a very real risk of exothermic reactions, landfill fires, and the generation of hazardous byproducts, including ammonium, if salt cakes are not disposed of appropriately. Additionally, I would like to bring to light the alarmingly high concentrations of PFAS chemicals in water sources in Murfreesboro that have been linked to leachate and wastewater discharges from Middle Point landfill. Although Tennessee does not have numeric PFAS limits for rivers, discharges of PFAS are regulated by the Clean Water Act. Federal Code 40 CFR Part 445 designates contaminated stormwater discharges as a point source. The city has completed water sampling from a stormwater outfall located at approximately 35.92 degrees north and 86.37 degrees west, which discharges directly to a stream under the Clean Water Act. Sampling from this location revealed PFOA levels at around 2,000 parts per trillion. Leachate from Middle Point landfill is processed in the city of Murfreesboro, WRRF, and indirectly discharged into the West Fork of the Stones River. Since the city doesn't have foam fractionation or granular activated carbon filtration methods to filter out these chemicals, there is a risk of contamination for water sources downstream. This includes the Stones River and Percy Priest Lake. This discharged leachate has been tested by licensed laboratories across the state, and PFAS levels have measured alarmingly high, with levels reaching 380,000 parts per trillion. The EPA has linked PFAS exposure to a variety of diseases and illnesses. Exposure is inextricably linked with a heightened risk of developing kidney cancer, such as renal carcinoma, and testicular cancers. The risk is compounded for infants and small children. According to the National Cancer Institute, pregnant mothers are exposed to PFAS chemicals. This can cause neurodevelopmental differences in the white matter microstructure of their children's brains, which impacts development of coordinating functions for motor skills, language, and memory. Additionally, I've noticed this board talking about EPR not costing money for the taxpayers, even if cost a bit more for prices. Starting recycling from the ground up would cost taxpayers exponentially more, as mentioned with a $1 million MRF project. Finally, I would like to note that I support the Tennessee Waste to Jobs Act. I admire the work they are doing surrounding MPL and their push for a sustainable solution to Tennessee's waste crisis that simultaneously boosts our economy and works to protect public health. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, for your comments.
I appreciate the opportunity, Chairman Riggs and Chairman Todd, to speak to the task force. I'm John McFadden. I'm Senior Fellow with the Tennessee Environmental Council. You know, I started with the council in 1989, and that's when I started coming to the legislature and listening and observing and watching. And I've heard these debates go on for years now about solid waste. And I want to just point out a couple of things. One, this material we call waste is really processed natural resources, whether you're talking about aluminum, fiber, food waste, whatever's going into that quote unquote waste stream is a natural resource at some point, and it's been processed and used. And of course, as we've heard today, it has value. There's costs associated with recovering that value. And the question, the fundamental question that I think you guys have to ask today, ask yourself as we move forward, and this is a strategy question. It's not a tactics question. It's not how are we going to make it happen. It's, do we want to embrace landfilling and pushing these processed natural resources out of the economy? Or do we want to embrace diverting them back into the economy as raw materials? It's a fundamental question. And once you can answer that question, then you can do the tactics. Then you can figure out exactly how to do it. And of course, as we know, there's ways to do it both ways. So that's the fundamental question, in my opinion. So thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your comments. So if there's nothing else for the good of the order here today, I believe we've done some good work. Chairman, anything else you want to share?
I believe we have been very productive. Appreciate all of your time today. Thank you for coming, and we will keep you posted on what movements are happening, both on our side and then for the next task force meeting as well.
Okay. We're adjourned.
We are adjourned.